Hi everyone, welcome to day 7 of the Caribbean Tech Summit. And hello from Suriname, a very shiny, sunshine Suriname today. As it's the rainy season, we really appreciate having some sun today. So, yes, let me say hello to all of you who are here at the day 7 of the Caribbean Tech Summit, which is Take the Lead Ecosystem Day. So the ecosystem of Caribbean of technology in the Caribbean, and that's what we're talking about today with a panel. And on our panel, we have three amazing speakers or two. Kylie Maloney from Tech Beach and Camille Selvon Abrahams from Anime Carib. We also may have Darnell Francois, who will join us later. He's from Draper Startup House, CARICOM. So we have today with us Kylie, Danelle. Oh, Danelle is already here. Sorry. Hello, Kylie. Hello, Danelle. Hi, Camille. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Kylie, how are you? And Danelle,
I'm great.
Hey, hey.
I see you all have a sunny day today as well. So I think it's a sunny day across the Caribbean.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Oh. Yeah, we had some rain the last days, but now it's really
Mhm,
sunny.
mhm.
So we're talking about leading the way in a Caribbean ecosystem, a technology ecosystem today with our panelists here. And I would like to start off with a short introduction of each of the speakers. So I will ask you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you're working on right now. So just briefly. Thank you. So we can start with Kylie.
All right. My name is Kyle Maloney.
Kyle,
Um,
sorry.
and I'm the co-founder of Tech Beach. Tech Beach is one of the leading ecosystem technology in the Caribbean. I think I froze there for a second. Well, I froze on my side. Uh, but yeah, we are one of the leading technology ecosystem builders in the Caribbean. And we do this through two main ways right now. One through our series of summits and smaller events. So we have a large summit in Montego Bay, Jamaica, where we bring together leaders from some of the best technology companies in the world, like Google, Meta, Microsoft, and then some of the best of who we are within the Caribbean and our diaspora. And we convene and share ideas, and really it's a meeting ground for some of our best talent. We do this in Miami as well to connect ourselves with the LATAM ecosystem. We also have an accelerator program that's focused on helping technology startups grow and scale. And so we've been running since 2016 and covering a lot of ground, and we have so much ahead of us that I'm excited to eventually share when the time is right.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And I'm sorry I didn't get your name right, but if you were in Suriname, that's
Yeah,
the Dutch pronunciation of your name. So,
that's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
right. And then I would like to go with Camille. Camille, your introduction. I mean, Camille doesn't need an extra introduction, but still, for this topic specifically.
Yes, and nice to see Kyle. It's telling that you're doing something good when when you have Kyle as a panel partner. Often, right? It means they're doing good. So my reason for the interest in this particular panel is that I am doing a lot of work to do with building an ecosystem, and whether it be through the education system, through the University of Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be through Anime Career Festival or Tap Factory, that is my mission now. And with Anime Career Festival, we have been in existence for 22 years. Anushka, you're part of that. You're part of that ecosystem, and that ecosystem has what it has done is caused us to or forced us to create a digital cooperative, and that occurred even more so during COVID when we had to make that choice whether we shut down or we keep going. And in order to keep going, we pulled all of the small micro um, projects and all of the small businesses that were doing digital stuff. We pulled them all together, and we were able to have a successful Anime Carib and not stop. So that ecosystem was also important. As far as the education side of it, UTT, we run in the BFA in Digital Media Arts, and their specialization in animation, gaming, and music technology. And that is about building the ecosystem to support things like what Kyle is doing, like the tech beaches. And I'm sure that Kyle will want to say we want to have a percentage of Caribbean creatives and experts to really kind of push those shows. But there's a lack of that. I know on my side there's a lack of that. So that ecosystem is to build that. And of course, Tap Factory is Trinidad and Tobago Animation Production Factory, which is an outsourcing studio whereby our university was given a grant by IWD, and we are creating an outsourcing platform to throw students into work. And that's my introduction.
Thank you, Camille. It's a short introduction. I can testify that her list is much longer of things that she does. So Darnell, why not hop in on the introductions as well?
Sure. Dana Franco, co-founder and CEO of Draper Startup House CARICOM. So we're part of a larger ecosystem globally, about 26 locations. So basically a co-working and tech ecosystem attached to the VC fund pipeline, originated from Singapore and spread across by Tim Draper from San Mateo, California, where we find the coolest spots around the world to connect entrepreneurs, creative digital nomads, and have like-minded talks, accelerator programs, workshops, venture funds for different stages, whether it's early stage capital or late stage where companies are already mature. That kind of all around ecosystem we are pushing. And here in the Caribbean, we are, my co-founders, Lydia and I, we're spearheading the initiative to push the same thing, right? To get the government on board along with the private sector, as well as the lobbying players like, the IDBs and whatnot. We all need to be on the same page to basically grow the Silicon Alley in the Caribbean, right? Because we're not too big to have a valleys, but I mean, we have a lot of talent here and a lot of opportunities that are unexplored. I think that's about it in summary.
Right. So all three of you are doing something that is actually building an ecosystem in technology in the Caribbean. But we're saying ecosystem all the time. And I'm not sure if everyone who is watching this panel has the same attributes or the same definition of an ecosystem. And I know that there are many definitions because we are also in Suriname talking about the digital entrepreneurship ecosystem, a digital economy ecosystem. And when we map out the ecosystem, we speak about human capital because that's very important to have the creatives and all the other services around it to offer the services, but also market and market development, like how big is our market where we can put off our products, and then culture. There needs to be a culture of doing things digitally, and having startups, creating a startup culture in the countries and who are successful, so more people will want to do jobs in these sectors, especially because most of the time we all go for the jobs that are well-known, doctors, lawyers, and all that. But hey, if you create a culture around digital jobs, those may also be much more in demand with the people. And you have the policy. We need a lot of policy, law, and regulation, and the supporting infrastructure. So if you look at the ecosystem like that, and I'm not going to ask you to give one definition, but if you look at that whole part, where do you feel your projects or the things that you're working on are making that tech ecosystem successful? And I'd like to go with the same order, so Kyle, and then Danielle, and then Camille.
Anushka, could you repeat the last part of your question? Say again.
Of course. My question is, when you look at the ecosystem in the way that I described it, so with
Yeah, I
all
heard that.
the elements,
Yeah.
how is your work, the work that you're doing, addressing this part of any part of the tech ecosystem and making the ecosystem develop much more successful?
Yeah. Okay. So within, we specifically focus on uh, growing the technology startup ecosystem, and like what does success look like for us? Success looks like more companies coming from the region that are able to grow and scale regionally and globally, and becoming an economic driver of the Caribbean. So hiring talent in the region and really just impacting positively the lives of people in the region, right? And so how do we get companies that have maybe a level of product market fit to achieving a level of scale across the Caribbean? And it's a complex task. It's not. So a lot of founders really think like, if you just give me the money, I'll be able to do this, right? And the reality is, my context is that I had a startup before this, and we managed to raise $2 million, and it's still not work out, right? Um, and so the money isn't the only thing. And so other really important pieces that we work to try to bring together to help uh, startups founders win are um, convening them together so that they can share ideas with each other, share the challenges, and then share some of the wins. That's one. Two, bring together other corporate leaders that are trying to figure out how do we invest in companies, um, how do we work with startups, how do we contribute to seeing a developed technology ecosystem in the region. We bring together government players as well, um, uh, in addition to talent, right? The talent being the people that will work for these companies, helping them to see opportunities in working with these companies that sometimes people work in silos and they don't have access to the relationships. And so coming to an event like what we put on would really bring a lot of these pieces and players together that wouldn't normally meet. And then an X factor that is unique that we're able to do as well is bring our diaspora into the mix, right? These are seasoned professionals coming from major technology companies who are interested in advising on startup companies, investing in them, and just creating more pathways to help companies grow and scale. And so these are the pieces of the ecosystem that we see around asking the question: how does a technology company go from an idea to a level of scale to have that real impact within the region? And so on the event side of things, we really work hard to draw in each of these individual pieces together so that it's not a convening of just people who are building companies, or it's not a convening of just corporate professionals, or it's not a convening of just investors, not a convening of just government. We really work hard to bring in all of these pieces together, to increase the likelihood that we can see some transformative outcomes coming from the region.
Right. Thank you, Kyle. I
Yeah.
see a lot of talent development. I see activities that are aligning with some of the things that we're doing with Animakery, but also with Creative Tech Hub here in Suriname and the whole gaming pipeline that we wanted to develop. So I really look forward to hearing more about what you do. But let's now first go to Danielle.
Sure.
Sure.
Um, in terms of what is needed, I think Kyle touched on a couple salient points. So funding, of course, is needed. And yes, you might even say, well, I know we got funding and we didn't succeed. But a lot of that would have been due to the fact that there isn't frameworks in place to help startups succeed in the Caribbean. One, two, in the Caribbean, we are very risk averse, right? So we need to have a mindset change. We need to change how the media is communicated around startups. Like we're having this discussion this week with the IDB and digital transformation. In America, there's the lemonade stand story, basically. You know, you see young kids selling lemonade. That's a normal image in your mind. In the Caribbean, we kind of see kids in classrooms and getting A's and grades, right? So we are kind of obsessed with this perfection and getting gold stars. So we don't have the mindset to even want to fail. And then you're punished when you fail. People don't see it as part of success, as hey, they were able to raise X amount of money and they were able to do this thing. What was missing from helping them? You know, whereas in the Caribbean, it's like, okay, what did they do wrong? It's not like what they needed. And that mindset shift has to happen for startups to want to try again, for them to even want to get the funding, because then nobody wants to get funding now and then, oh, what if I fail, right? Whereas in other countries, let's say, it doesn't be Silicon Valley, it could be Detroit, wherever it is. If you raise up money and you get almost to that point, there's somebody there willing to like, hey, you're missing this from your product market fit, or hey, your team is actually missing a QA on these two levels, and that will actually make the company go from 1 to 2 or whatever the case is. But because we're not savvy in the Caribbean, I'll give an example of Minister of Finance is actually against cryptocurrency. So if you're aware of these things, it's very hard for entrepreneurs to want to flourish. Better either leave the country or better I just kind of go the natural route of a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, right? Because it's so scary to then fail in front of the people or whatever the case is. And in other countries, that's part of the game, right? People actually applaud you for trying and applaud you for getting to this point, unless we get to the other point. So mindset shift, communication, and of course, the talent development, all those things, we know that is necessary. But the support is what we need, and the cheering more than the, you know, with the see you crash out kind of thing, that is the change in the Caribbean. And that can't happen only with the entrepreneurs. That definitely has to happen from the state and the state bodies and agencies understanding that, hey, this company almost made it or is making it and is getting trouble. Let's have a meeting with them to see how we could get this. Because I went for the companies, actually went for the country, right? Because of what the government doesn't understand, and even other competing startups, because there's no competition really, right? We are like a drop in the ocean. The more we have successful startups from whether Trinidad or Barbados, is the more investment will come to our country, the more talent will want to come to our country. And that's really the goal, right? Is not to laugh at each other or be like, oh, they feel like not going to invest our sector again. Like, imagine if we stopped digging for oil when we didn't find oil, right? We'll not be a rich country. But when it comes to tech and these things that they deem, I guess, on the fringes of whatever their agenda is, okay, that failed, yeah, they crash that, they get back to oil and gas. That is what is keeping back, well, Trinidad in particular, and I guess the Caribbean, that risk averseness and the lack of standing with each other.
Right. I can say that whatever you just said, I can just take that and wherever you said Trinidad or Jamaica or whatever, I could put in Suriname. And that's how much alike the ecosystem is in
Yeah.
each of the countries. Yeah. So we have the same challenges, like in also governments and policymakers looking more into the natural resources ecosystem instead of creating that diversification that we all need because we cannot be so dependent on one sector or the other. So yes, I could recognize a lot of this, and I think our audience who's listening now or later can also see that, and we can work on that if we collaborate together. Because hey, we can learn so much from each other. Which brings me to Camille. If Camille could address the question as well, thank you.
Yes. So, I mean, all of the points that you brought forward, Anushka, regarding the ecosystem and that breakdown is real. We experience it. However, that ecosystem is very critical for success, right? Especially in these times where things are changing, where technology is just shifting so quickly. We need that ecosystem. So the part that I think my organization and the push that I do on my personal side focus on is culture, and not just meaning cultural products. I don't mean that. I mean it's the culture of business, it's the culture of new technology, you know, the culture of new staff in new spaces. And it's important because when you look at the areas that I cover, which is animation, gaming, new technology, there's a particular way that functions, and it does not function in the traditional setting. It's like the Caribbean, we don't work like that, right? We don't have a history of working like that. So, for instance, in the animation industry, um, and a lot of the young digital artists, they work at different times of the night, so they function better at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now you tell this to a traditional Kyle there, you see what I mean? Right? So you tell this to a traditional boardroom guys, these guys need to, they need to function in these spaces because they are much more alert, they get a lot more done, they are much more progressive at these times. So therefore you need to consider different methodologies of working. And you tell that to traditional government spaces, you tell that to traditional old school organizations, and they will think you're going crazy, right? So that ecosystem, that's where I see myself. I am a conduit between the young people like Kyle and the old boardroom, and to get that translation to happen. And something that Kyle mentioned that is so important, and it's to do with feeling,
Donna,
or you
really.
know, right? That is so important because even if you take into consideration what I am doing right now at TTAP, which is Trans Tobago Animation Factory, we spend the last 2 years failing. But what we've learned so far and what we've put in place now, we are sound in order to take on the kind of outsourcing work that is needed. So again, is being able to being able to be part of an ecosystem that may not necessarily believe in the way things should be in the modern setting, but creating a bridge between the creatives and that boardroom. That to me is very critical because that boardroom is not going to go away. I hope it does because the boardroom doesn't work. I personally feel that that boardroom does not work. And therefore, you need conduits between the boardroom and the creatives so that ecosystem could survive and function the way that it needs to function.
Okay, I see all of that happening when I'm working with you, so I can I understand completely. And we also have the same problem here. In what I can see with us is that our labor policy is not yet so well developed that it can enable flex work. So
Mhm.
yes, working late hours or working just a few days in the week is totally different.
Mhm.
But Camille, I'll go forward with you. So my
Sure.
question is, so please go ahead and answer. What are some of the major systemic barriers that you see in the progress for tech startups?
So I want to start with the female issue, the fact that my this area is male dominated. So I personally would experience a lot of challenges in that said boardroom, right? So that's a challenge. That's one of the main barriers, and there are a lot of wonderful young women who have the ability to lead, but would not be given those opportunities unless those barriers are broken. So that's a major barrier. The other barrier I would say is working in the Caribbean spaces with all of the challenges, like for instance, the US dollar, foreign exchange. That is a big issue because we work with that system, right? We outsourcing in animation and gaming is 99% foreign. We don't get money from the Caribbean for outsourcing in animation and gaming. So therefore you have to deal with foreign exchange. You have to pay people in the US. We have clients, not clients, we work closely with Cuba, for instance, and working with Cuba is an absolute nightmare. But they have the most talented animators, the most talented game designers in the Caribbean, but yet we are not able to kind of forge those kind of relationships so that we could really be a region that is competitive in the digital global sense. And the final issue, I think, is just I think is access to funding for small and micro enterprise. Um, Again, things like communicating to the banks that you want to open a business to do it, creating digital assets. They don't understand that. I mean, when I came back, I think I mentioned this a few times. When I came back to London after studying animation and I went to the bank, I was so naive. Oh my God, I was so naive. I went to the bank and I said, I want to open my own studio and it's animation. This was, 15, 20 years ago. And the managers turned to me and said, but what exactly you're putting on the shelf? I will never forget that, right? Because the moment she asked that, I knew that banking system, grant system, they don't understand what digital economy is, right? So those are the three main challenges that I would say I experience in my area.
Thank you, Camille. Please think about, because my next question will be like, how can we efficiently and successfully, because in the space where we are working in the technology space, everything is moving fast, and there is already a lot of work that can come our way, but we are having all these barriers that we are addressing now, that we are naming now. So how can we, what can we do to make these go away and belong to the past, and then we can laugh about it, how we laugh now about the dial-up connection, like when we had the dial-up connection. So Kyle, can you please take the question about the systemic barriers in the progress for tech startups? And I hope that you address the fact that you mentioned that you had another startup, and even with 2 million US dollars of funding, it didn't went well. So I think you have some of the very essential lessons that you can share with us.
Yeah. I think the biggest systemic challenge is education, at every level. I think the reason we move so slowly in the region is because people have not taken the time to really wrap their minds around this entire technology space, right? And understanding the ecosystem, understanding what their contribution needs to be to the ecosystem, understanding where the other players play. Like it all, it's like a big blur to people in a lot, right? Quite frankly, like if I was in a position of leadership power, from the perspective of affecting like serious change and within a region, if I was in any country, I would drive technology education at every level aggressively, right? Like from the boardroom to the kindergarten classroom. And what that's gonna do for us is exponential transformative impact, right? Because you're gonna begin having kids thinking about how they can build applications and how they can, yeah, how they can build applications for fun, how they can build applications to solve problems around them, like and beginning their 10,000 hours of experience, right? So by the time they get to secondary school, like it's like English, right? Like after I learn English in standard 5, I don't know how it is in Suriname, but like right before you go to CXC, I barely learn much more English language in secondary school. Like so once you teach the kids to code, they'll begin to teach themselves so many more things, right? So many more things, and they'll begin building so many new applications, and so many more doors open for me because I learned how to speak English well, right? And so the gains on that became exponential because I can learn everything else, right? You learn math, science, biology, geography because you spend time learning English, right? So you spend time learning code, and your whole life opens up in a big way, right? So from that level, and then from the board level of like, hey guys, from a policy framework standpoint, what are we doing? How are we as successful companies seconding capital to invest in the development of this ecosystem so that we begin seeing some transformative things happening from the ground up, right? And then what are we doing from an investment standpoint, from the top down, But it's all education, right? And so who's educating the people as in charge of making sure the people are educated, right? You know, and so these shifts are happening so quickly that our governments are still wrapping their minds around digital transformation and understanding technology, but now we have AI, right? But we still wrap our minds around what digital transformation is and deploying technology in our businesses and in government. But then now we have to figure out how do we utilize AI. So like, oh my God, we haven't caught up here yet, but we have to go all the way over here, you know? So hopefully we can make a bunny hop. You know, you can just skip that whole thing. Skip the whole digital transformation thing and just go straight to AI. You know, so I'm hoping like something amazing can happen and we can have some non-linear outcomes that can be massively transformative to our societies because we're really small, you know, like it shouldn't be so complicated, so difficult actually. It is complicated, but it shouldn't be so what it feels sometimes so it's like almost really impossible sometimes. It feels you feel jaded. You feel like really like, oh my God, like nothing is gonna happen sometimes, you know? And things happen so slowly. It shouldn't feel like that. Because it is possible. We operate within very small numbers of populations and we're highly educated. And so being able to now take on this other type of education, like our minds already open to learning already, you know, like we have a lot of the foundational basis there already. So I know I didn't get to my other company, but you asked me what's a systemic thing, and I'm real passionate about that. and,
We could
and
tell.
yeah, and I know that if there was significant investment in education at all levels in that way, and not just a classroom, like when people think education, you gotta go sit down in a classroom, you know, like education at all levels, it'll be transformative. Like the
Yeah.
outcomes will be exponential.
Yes, your passion shows, like Camille said. But I will keep you to that question, and maybe in a podcast or some other session, and then we can still share the story with others because there's important lessons there. So Danelle, can you please go ahead and answer the question?
Yeah, could you just repeat it one more time? I just want to make sure I answer the correct part of the question.
Oh, yes. I was asking about the systemic barriers that you see for the progress of tech startups. So, what is it that is keeping them from progressing? So, tech startups specifically.
Yeah, so I think I guess based on how far we're trying to crawl back from to keep up with the world as kind of reach AI, and if people realize in the last 6 months, the proliferation of AI has been crazy, right? Fastest companies ever like OpenAI to reach 100 million users, those kind of things, blistering speed, right? And we're still trying to figure out regular startup with C++, Java coding, etc. So systemically, we need more micro-credentialism to be normalized in our society. Like, we need to let go of these 4-year degrees and these 3-year degrees, thinking like that's the way forward. You want a doctor to be well-trained, of course. Like, you want a lawyer to go to school for them, sure. In terms of technology, though, you could literally become a UI, UX developer, designer, researcher in like 6 months. Not saying you're going to be top of your class, but you could actually handle yourself enough to now have on-the-job mentoring with a senior UX designer or whatever the case is in that way, right? So whether you're QA, a product manager, whatever, in 6 months, you could become that thing. You don't have to take 6 years. You need to let that go. Those shackles are very, very heavy on us in the Caribbean diaspora. We need to let that go. We don't need to do things for 8 years before we're capable of doing it. And that's actually what the other societies are doing, right? They're investing in these micro-credential things. So now they have a bunch of coders, a bunch of UI people, a bunch of product managers, a bunch of QAs, a bunch of data scientists. So by the time 3 years have passed, they now have an army of people willing to build these startups. And just to give example, the systemic part now. So Estonia, people like Trinidad, since as Estonia, we could beat them. And yeah, physically, there's nothing stopping us from becoming like Estonia. It's our mindset. When Skype was raising funds, the government was on the cap table of Skype, right? That is unheard of in the Caribbean. Unheard of. They'll never do that. You know, the most they might do is, I don't know, in a little technology fair, they might give you a grant for a little kind of thing, a sponsorship. But to say like the government is actually betting on you, never, right? And that is very common in Estonia. They have 15 unicorns for a reason. It's not just randomly. They have these genius. There's not something different in the water. It's literally just their mindset. The government is supporting them. Venture capital and risk capital is supporting them. Their friends and family know it's possible, so they also can support them, not even if it's financially, but as Kyle will know, like sometimes you just need a phone call to like, hey boy, you're going good. Like that's sometimes that's all you need to get to the next level. It might even be fun. You might need to be like, boy, you're not wasting time or breaking ground, That is all we need, that buy-in on a systemic level. And I think micro credentials will actually change dramatically how we view things, and then we get even more developed, and not even from the supporting, like you have to work locally. Being able to work remote with these skills will actually be bringing more foreign direct investment through the income, the foreign currency income. So if 100 donors are working online from Trinidad and they make in US, guess what? That's more spending power into the economy. So it actually behooves the government and these people to actually help the citizens get these skills so that not everybody wants to live Trinidad. That next thing, because that's their fear, right? It's a big, everything is risk aversion and fear. But next time we have them get smart, and like a lot of people don't want to go in the cold countries. They don't want to leave their friends and family. But if I can make X amount of money and bring it into the economy, it's a win-win. I'm happy and fulfilled as a human. You getting to tax me and getting more spending dollars in the economy. So there's so many ways that this makes sense, but they are focused on only the worst case scenario, and that tech thing is a fad, But now the scene is not a fad, and we are literally like so far behind that we now on AI, and you could design things yourself on Midjourney and clean up the photos on Nightmare AI. There's so much things that's going on that if I speak to a minister about this in too much detail, I might just lose them, right? So they just throw me to a corporate secretary, they'll throw me to the tech person in their department who is also lost, but at least from my experience recently, they're a little more open. So I have hope, for things improving. But once they understand the speed at which the world is moving is like literally 10 times as fast as we move here, like the PT grants or whatever, it's not going to work out. Like it's really not going to work out. This has to be a real, okay, we are buying into this. The same way like when the Wright brothers was trying to get in plane and achieve flight, the government was involved, private companies were involved, everybody that's helping in. We need to look at it like that. Like we're trying to achieve flight right now in Trinidad and the Caribbean and the diaspora. And if all the actors are not acting in cohesion and with synergies, we're not gonna take off. And pointing fingers gonna do what for us? Nothing, Like
Yeah, I totally understand. And I must say that even though there are all these systemic barriers, all four of us are still working very passionately, dedicated, and
Yeah.
with a big hope for that things will get well. But it's not just that we're working with pink glasses or living on a pink cloud. We already are doing businesses like Danel has a whole chain of he is part of a larger chain, and what Kylie is doing is also, and Camille, and what we are doing here in Suriname. If you combine all of that, it's still something to be very proud of. To say that there are all these barriers, but there are also opportunities, and there are people who believe in the Caribbean, who believe in the talent of our people, and they are doing the best that they can with the resources that we have. So to wrap it up, I will ask all of you one question. The last question for all of you is: any advice or last words to inspire tech entrepreneurs that they don't get disheartened by hearing all and by experiencing all these barriers and challenges? But any advice or last words for the tech entrepreneurs?
Starting.
Yes, Camille.
Well, so I am I've been here longer than a lot of you all, right? I am on my way out. Um, so what I would like to see to those coming in is always leave room for those coming in, right? Because you will be in my position at some point. And if you remember the kind of pushback you got from people in my position, then you wouldn't do the same for those coming up behind you. So it's something to do in the future. It's not something necessarily to do now, but certainly put yourself in my position now, or put yourself, understand what you're experiencing with the pushback from those who don't understand. And therefore, when you get in a position to support, please do that with the knowledge of what you went through. And the last thing I would say is just, we have built up an ecosystem. So all of us here, as Anushka said, it's a success. So things aren't that bad, and we are doing well.
I guess I'll go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Yeah. I think overall, I think we focused a lot on how we can be better and where the challenges exist. I just want to kind of underscore what Camille said in terms of progress. I think that within the last decade, we've made tremendous progress as a region. We have a few technology companies achieving a good level of scale across the region. Companies like WePay, we have a company called EduFocal in Jamaica that's public on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The founder of EduFocal is the youngest CEO on the stock exchange. So things like that happening. Trinidad has a Ministry of Digital Transformation that happened within the last couple of years. So we're beginning to see we're seeing progress, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Where our frustration really comes from is just like comparatively, we know that we can do so much more, and we can run so much more quickly. Um, and of a sort of fear that if we don't begin running, we'd be left behind, and it would have significant economic impact on us as a region. So, but be that as it may, we're here pushing, we're here working on opening the doors, and for us, it's not about being the first, and or opening door just for us. It's about opening the door for so many other people to follow. It's about raising the tide in harbor so that so many ships are positively impacted. And we're excited and super passionate about the work that we do, and we're hopeful that we can see some transformative outcomes happen across the region and see a level of greater integration economically, so that we can have like a global impact coming from our little corner of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Danielle?
Yeah. So I guess in summary, yeah, like definitely this is the most productive we've been as a digital society. So like it's not all bad, but of course the inner tech person in you who's aware of what's going on, you must focus on the things you need improvement, right? But we're definitely making progress. And I guess what I would say to people, all the young kids, after school, go on YouTube, go on Coursera, do whatever you need to do to learn the skills you need so that you could keep pushing. The same way we have the internet and we are pushing towards the tech beaches, the drapers, getting tech stars over here and doing our own projects. Yeah, like not only should you use your internet to use FIFA Live or NBA Live, but brainstorm with your friends, like hustle together. Like that needs to become a norm. Like after we play our video game, let's learn something and come and do a project together. Because when you're young, we did projects together with your friends all the time. It just wasn't, it didn't have the power to be this impactful, right? I did a lot of companies just from using my internet, and things are even more available in terms of resources, connections. LinkedIn is amazing, TikTok is amazing to connect to people and get your product idea out there. So look at the internet not only as a tool for entertainment and distraction, but once we get our youth to understand, hey, you could actually become a home millionaire from without even flying out the country, just with your skills, that will change what's going on. But yeah, we're definitely on the right track as much as we can be.
Right. Yes. Thank you so much, Danelle, Kyle, and Camille, and Anushka, for being here today and sharing about how our work is helping the ecosystem to develop. Thank you for taking the time for being here with us. And I look forward to working with all of you and to growing together. So let's get skilled and work hard towards a brighter future in the Caribbean.
All right. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Bye. Well, that was our panel about the ecosystem, and we have some. Yes, we have some. We have a nice lineup of speakers, and there we have Samya who just joined us.
Hello. What an amazing panel.
It was, wasn't it? It was so.
It is. It's always so exciting and inspirational to see other Caribbean countries because we're all similar in a way in terms of infrastructure and all those things. But when a country is like streamlining this digital innovation despite barriers and stuff, I think it's always so inspiring to see, and it's really setting the bar for other Caribbean nations as well. So it's always cool to hear these kinds of stories.
Right. Same here. I enjoyed that when Danielle was speaking about some of the barriers, and Kyle, I was like, oh, yes, just substitute Suriname with Trinidad and, with Barbados or Jamaica. We would still have the same.
Absolutely.
So, are you announcing our next speaker?
Absolutely. I am super, super excited to announce Melissa, who's going to come up and speak to us about tech in the food manufacturing industry. But before we welcome her on the stage, let me tell you a little bit about Melissa. She's an entrepreneurial leader of a second-generation food manufacturing company. She used technology through cloud-based software, business intelligence tools to base tough decisions. She transformed a community bakery to one of the largest private labeling commercial bakers, serving the largest brands, PriceSmart, Starbucks, and TGIF, to name a few. How awesome is that? Let's welcome Melissa to the stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you, someone?
I am doing, Soumya, I'm doing fantastic.
Apologies.
Doing fantastic. I'm really excited actually to hear a lot more about the manufacturing industry within the Caribbean, especially when it comes to food. Because as a business student right now, we learn a lot about like manufacturing, but it's always in the context of like Eastern Asian countries, just because it's a lot cheaper. Like it's more cost efficient there. And I always thought about, maybe one day starting manufacturing in the Bahamas because we have so much land and not much is doing with it. But I always think about how feasible is it. So I'm really, really looking forward to your talk about, food manufacturing, how your family started it and all of that. But I don't want to take up more of your time.
All right.
Yes.
I would start. So I would share my screen just so I would start in now anyway. I'm having some trouble sharing my screen. Let me see. So basically Pasca's Bakery was started by my father 38 years ago, and we basically a family business, and we started off serving our brick and consumer.
Sorry, Melissa. I think you're just sharing the StreamYard screen, not the actual presentation.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Hold on, let me see if I share screen slides. Oh, I guess this is the first time I'm using. You know what? I won't do that. I'm just going to talk, and you guys would just, if you have questions, you guys would ask, because I'm having some trouble there. So, okay. So Pasca's Bakery, it's a second generation family business. Started 37 years ago by my father. So initially, our primary customer was a community bakery. So we served basically the communities along the east-west corridor of the island. In our heyday, we had 15 locations, all situated in very popular areas of Trinidad. And then, of course, the onset of decline came in, with the pop-up of in-house bakeries and groceries, which really made it very convenient for you to pick up every single thing in one stop. So obviously that affected our sales. So what happened is that basically sales declined. And now the question is, I returned to the business, I would say 5-6 years ago, to really address the issues. And I really came back because Pasca's Bakery, our data was held ransom for Bitcoin. Can you imagine this little business? We didn't protect our data. We had nothing secured, but the data that we had, we didn't recognize how precious it was. So we were faced with severe issues. You can imagine, as a company, every single thing is gone. And not did it happen once, it happened twice within the same year. As I came into the business and transitioning. So you could well imagine the stress associated with it. It was disastrous. Um, that's the reason why I'm so focused on technology, because of the hardship and pain that I endured. So that is the Bitcoin ransom, because of a lack of our infrastructure and our security. We suffered that, and not so I had to deal with that, as well as declining sales and every single thing else to go along with it. So then I had to free up myself, in terms of, it's only one of me and very, at that moment, at that time, the business was very limited in capital and human capital. So we decided, I had to think, how can I basically focus on high priority tasks, and I use technology. So we implemented softwares for payroll, for HR, for our ERP system, as well as our accounting system. Now, we did not do all of that at the same time, because that's too much change all at once, and that would just be disastrous. Okay, we did it, of course, on a phased approach. We had to get persons to come in to ensure to put in the infrastructure for each one of them, because again, it's very specialized skill set. As a result of that, over time, I was then able to really focus on transitioning the business. So with that time freed, I believe technology, utilizing all of those softwares, and of course the data and the insights that it was able to give, I was then able to transition to focus on business development. Because without that, there would be no Pasca's Bakery, because again, as I told you, there was declining sales. So how do you transition from your entire business model to go from supplying consumers to now supplying business to business? So that is why we are now associated with very large international brands and franchise, is because we had to transition, and technology was the reason why I think played a critical part in ensuring that I was able to now go out and literally form critical relationships with our customers, to then show them that we are in the business of basically serving the food service industry. So I would encourage every single entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you are manufacturing bread to crayons, you need money, you need the support and the power associated with technology in your business from an administrative point of view. Because when you have when you have these mundane tasks systemized, automated, it literally ensures that you can focus on high value tasks. And so that was how the technology was able to assist us from transitioning from B2C to B2B operating model. Now, within the last month and a half, we identified that we are facing another challenge. Our current ERP system, we are underutilizing it. Why? Because we're having a lot of problems filling in data entry. For many reasons, we're having problems with staffing, with training, and we are not able to get the information filled out correctly. We are creating all these fancy forms. The production staff aren't able to fill it out. The production manager isn't very data centric. He doesn't understand the importance of data, or maybe he does, but that's a different story. Anyway, so I had a conversation with a local tech company in Trinidad, and they are using the power a chat GPT AI technology and creating a chat interface, so that we are going to pilot it, so that the actual production staff will be able to use, of course, a chat interface to literally fill in all the information. Now, this is critical for us, because right now the biggest pain points we have is that the production staff currently fill out all these forms, then bring it into the office for then administrative staff to fill it out. Now, the problem associated with that is, one, the quality of the form, the data on the form, a lot of the times are substandard. And then when the administrative staff needs to fill it in, they have make assumptions, skewing the data And basically, you never know what the cost of production is. What is your operating cost? What is the cost of goods sold? You don't know, because all these assumptions are made and the data is absolutely skewed. And it's the most frustrating thing, because you cannot get a report that actually is relevant and correct. So it was a meeting that we had a week or 2 weeks ago. And next week actually is when we start out, where the tech company is going to be spending at least a day in our company, engaging with different levels within the production, from the production manager to the accountant, who is basically set up the entire infrastructure of our ERP, understands it well, as well as the supervisors within the production floor to understand the entire process, the parameters, build it in, build it out, and to then test it. So we are hoping within a month and a half, we will have an operational chat interface that would then feed directly into our ERP system, so that we can populate our ERP with much more accurate data, not live, but a lot closer to live than we ever were. And again, beautiful technology. It is absolutely amazing. And then I would say, from a personal level, within the last 6 months, or actually less, I've been using GPT for every single thing, Chat GPT for everything. I use it for all my ideation processes. I use it to assist me to build most of my content on LinkedIn. Idea generation is so powerful. I mean, that's just a side note, but it is exceptional, and it is revolutionizing business. So I mean, I would stop here for a bit in terms of, if anybody has any questions, or because I know I'm not sharing my slides. If you have any more questions, you could feel free.
Yeah, I actually have a few questions. I'm curious to know if you happen to maybe have a rough estimation on like productivity rate within the business pre-technology and then after the digital integration.
So I would say, all I can quantify it is in terms of man hours. I would say, example, for payroll, a simple thing as payroll used to take us a day. Why? Because we use Excel. There were errors. Somebody messed in format, and then after nobody used ACH. It was no online payments. It was just disastrous and a mess. Now every single thing is so seamless, seamless. So therefore, you go from almost a day to what, an hour, if so much, literally less than an hour, 30 minutes. Click.
Yeah. That was actually my follow-up question. Like, what is one thing that took like hours and days, and that just like in a snap got fixed with technology? And payroll is a very big part of any business. So that big thing being solved is a big thing.
It's huge, because it also links to all of the statutory requirements as well, which is also automated. So everything is just a click, print, and that's it. Yeah, it just streamlines every single thing. It makes anyone can sit at the desk. Then you don't need much qualifications, versus we needed an accountant. So again, from that perspective, we're also saving, because again, versus an accountant versus an admin staff.
Now, you mentioned earlier about like working with people who are I don't want to say old heads, but they probably just don't know, like, the value of technology, the power of technology. And we see that in our country as well, like with government and all of these people who are supposed to be innovative but are not doing that. What are some ways to get them to see the light?
The only one thing I've found is literally communication. And how is it benefiting you? How is it benefiting this person? It's reassuring. It's not here to take over your job. You're still important. If you are valuable, be valuable by acknowledging that this is simply a tool. Don't dig the dirt with your hands. You use a shovel. Yeah? Use a shovel that's powered by a motor. Whatever. And it's to really break it down like that, and to have the patience to really communicate at all levels, to speak the language that anyone can speak, and break it down. Don't expect to have the same language, way of communication, tone, all those things, because again, you can turn somebody off in a heartbeat. And I'm speaking from experience, because I'm just assuming that you would know, and you don't. One thing, I never make an assumption.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you mentioned using technology a lot in like the business part, the digital part as well. But I'm curious to know, is there one thing like related to the food aspect that technology is used, which is like really surprising for like the average person, like something that I wouldn't probably know, for example, in like food manufacturing?
So rice cake. So we manufacture a product that is a rice cake and a rice cracker that compete directly with Quaker. So again, we focus a lot on import substitution.
Yeah.
That little machine, it is one machine. It is extremely small, but it's automated. That is the only thing that is fully automated in the company, and literally it competes with one of the largest brands in the world. And the machine is less than 4 feet, and it just literally cranks it out. So that is technology, but from a machine perspective.
Yeah.
That literally, so once you do your research, once you understand the manufacturing process, once you go to enough trade shows, you will find the machine that literally can put you into a space to compete at the largest level. You don't need to spend $1 million to compete at the largest level.
And it's ridiculous too, because like when you think of like manpower versus a machine that runs 24/7, it's incomparable almost from a business point of view.
Absolutely. And because we are working with this local tech company, we're asking ourselves, how can we incorporate sensors? We don't have sensors at the moment. How can we rearrange our factory floor so that we can literally walk in straight lines? A simple thing as that, because again, it's all about energy, it's all about use of space, it's all about factory supposed to be in straight lines perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's all those little things that saves man hours, which is ultimately time.
Do you have an opinion maybe on how trade and export is supported within the Caribbean? Do you feel like it's a viable industry? Do you feel like that's an industry that's well supported in the Caribbean? I think it's what I want to ask.
I'm gonna answer this question with Mia Motley's Prime Minister Mia Motley's 25 by 25. She literally came up with a paper. She says she mandated the Caribbean needs to become food secure and reduce its food imports by 25% by 2025. She formed a committee headed by Jervis Warner, the chairman of the Massey Group of companies, and leaders from across the Caribbean. Now, and the reason why I started there, because that answers the question. The question is that because of the massive pain point the Caribbean has, because of our large import food bill, we are food insecure. If the port of Miami shuts down right now, the Caribbean would starve. Right?
Absolutely.
Therefore, it shows us that there's a massive opportunity for anyone to step up and get in the space of food manufacturing. However, the question to ask, what are the barriers to entry in order to do anything at scale? What is it cost? What is the setup cost? Can you form partnerships and alliances? Is it a prototype that you can test and then after say, okay, am I really going to go and co-manufacture with someone? Everything is about alliances, because that is what we do all the time. I'm huge on alliances and win-win situations.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you the story. So I went, the first large contract that I got was literally going into a seemingly competitor in the local space and going to them, listen, I have a product here. It's a product that you don't manufacture, but we have the specific machines to get it done. But you're a competitor, they said. I said, no. I said, that's where you're looking at it very differently. I said, I'm a collaborator. I said, because at the end of the day, I see both of us winning. If I serve you, you win, I win, and your customer also wins. And as a result of that, now we have business that is growing and growing and growing. So to answer your question, yes, it's viable. You have to be very smart and find a unique way to enter, and having a collaborative mindset, a growth mindset is critical to get into that space because it is expensive.
It is.
And use the data to find a niche.
Absolutely. The market data, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I know like in the Bahamas, we import, I think, over 70% of our goods. And we really, really felt it during the pandemic when, everything was just a mess. And our soil as well in the Bahamas, we don't have proper soil because the land is made from calcium carbonate. So farming is also a struggle. So food security is like, it needs to be number one priority for us
Yeah.
because it's tough out there for sure.
Yes, it's huge. It really is huge.
Absolutely. I guess my last question would be like, what's in store for I guess Pascal's Bakery now?
So great question. So, we have some trade shows coming up. One to really expand our line.
Yeah.
We have to onboard some of the largest groceries on the island, as well as export this year for our brand called Sultan, which
Mhm.
is our healthy snacking line, food conscious snacking line. So that's exporting this year, as well as we are going to focus on pushing. I'm going to focus on pushing a new business, a new entity brand called Food Titans that's focusing on helping businesses within the food space to focus on collaboration, innovation, product development, testing new products, being acting as a consultant, really working on that aspect of the business. A lot of IP,
Mm.
really, really focusing on that innovation and food as energy. That is what Food Titans is ultimately all about. So I'll be doing a lot of work on that. And as well, of course, focusing on how can Pascal's Bakery really rise to the challenge that Mia Mortley has put out, PM Mortley has put out. What other ways can we engage to ensure that the Caribbean is food secure? And believe me, we are thinking and working arduously on that. I had a call today with one of our government entities to literally ask, can you guys fund, can you guys fund this? You're like, okay, let's see how we can.
Mhm.
Because again, if private sector does not work alongside public PP relationship, we will not be able to feed our people.
Absolutely.
Critical. It's critical. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa. I don't know if you had something more to share from your presentation or was that it?
No, I that's it for me. I think you asked
Okay.
fantastic questions. We really got through a lot of it. Yeah, and I mean it's quite simple. I know what this presentation would share is that technology can be simple, and meaning it can be. It's just a matter of what you or your company or your institution needs, and it's modular and it can be incremental because nothing can happen all at once because we all have confines and constraints. But don't be daunted. Just chip away at it and see the results and the impact. Because again, we are now competing directly with some of the largest brands because of the choices that we made.
Absolutely. And
Yep.
more power to you and your company, Melissa. Thank you so much for sharing the story today.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your wonderful questions. Have a blessed one.
Absolutely. That was really nice. I have like these dreams of one day also getting into food manufacturing. So it was nice hearing from Melissa and the fact that it is a feasible industry. And moreover, it's an industry that we need. So fingers crossed one day, hopefully in a few years, I can bring this clip up and say, hey, I did it. But yes, moving on to our next speaker on today's lineup of innovation throughout the Caribbean. We have Jehan, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, from St. Lucia. So a little bit about her. She has led a multi-hyphenated career across a myriad of industries, okay, with experience in consultancy for boutique firms to large international corporations, after which she spent almost a decade in logistics operations. Having always been passionate about highlighting the potential of the people from the Caribbean, as a Trinidad native and adopted St. Lucian, she has a love for all things quintessentially Caribbean. I love that. And believes that the people of the region have boundless talent. I love that as well. Let's welcome her on the stage.
Hi, Soumya.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I love the fact that you love the Caribbean as much as I do, because I believe it's an amazing place. We're amazing people, amazing culture, and endless amount of talent, like you said.
We really are.
So today you're going to talk about changing the landscape of skill sharing and donating in the Caribbean through time banking, eh?
I sure am. Shall I jump right in?
Awesome. Absolutely. Take it away.
Hey. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jahan Shariki, co-founder of Bandy, a groundbreaking mobile app that will strengthen Caribbean communities through individual, group, and organizational skill exchanges using time banking. Our beloved islands of the Caribbean Sea are unquestionably beautiful, majestic, and vibrant. What tends to get overlooked is the boundless talent of our people. Many islands share characteristics which make them economically, environmentally, and socially vulnerable to external shocks over which they exercise little or no control, placing them at a distinct disadvantage. They're typically characterized by a combination of small population, limited resources, remoteness, susceptibility to natural disasters, excessive dependence on international trade, and vulnerability to global developments. We at Bandy believe that we need to operate more like a regional community, sharing our knowledge, skills, and talents. We believe in uniting the ideals of the past and the technology of the future to create ways to pay it forward daily, using your most valuable commodity, time. Sorry about that. Traditionally, we associate giving and donations with money. However, there are a vast number of people in our region for whom this just is not feasible. We at Bambi believe that given our platform and the opportunity to participate in their communities, Caribbean people will bank time not only with charities and NGOs, but with their neighbors. Being a pan Caribbean app, Bambi will accelerate this giving potential by broadening the scope of where, how, and who users can donate their time to. Furthermore, people who download the app and bank time using any of their talents will then redeem the equivalent time they donated to expand their personal and professional skill sets. For many, this will mean access to education or vocational opportunities that they would not have otherwise been able to afford monetarily. Our mission is to help increase social mobility, help people identify sustainable sources of income, empower people, and enhance communities. What is time banking? Time banking is utilizing what skills you have to provide a service in exchange for credits that we can use as currency to redeem for something that you need. Every one of us has something of value to share with someone else. The app will allow users to browse ways to bank time depending on their availability, skill set, and interests. Once the user earns their digitized time credits, they can browse the app and use the interface to redeem said credits. Users can learn new skills, attend online workshops, find regional internships, get stylist tips, or a home cooked meal. The possibilities are endless. Let me paint you a picture. Meet David. He's 19 years old and living in St. Lucia. After CXC, his family didn't have the means to send him to Sir Arthur Lewis College for A levels or any further tertiary education. He entered the workforce a few years ago. However, with no qualifications or direction, he's built up a CV consisting primarily of labor intensive or menial duties. He has the desire to learn and enormous potential. He just isn't quite sure how or where to get started or even what opportunities exist for him. In less than a year from now, David will log on to Bandy and bank 5 hours helping in the kitchen at Cornerstone Humanitarian Society, his neighborhood homeless shelter. In the next few weeks, he'll bank another 3 hours delivering food to mentally challenged and destitute residents for the Sufre Foundation Soup Kitchen. With each fulfilling experience, he earns digitized tokens for the equivalent amount of time he banked. Using the Bandy app, he chooses to redeem tokens by taking a virtual introduction to an animation course at the Digital Media Studies Department of UTT. Days later, he attends an online workshop titled A Day in the Life of a General Manager, hosted by the GM of Harbor Club in St. Lucia. Over the next few months, David continues to bank time in his community and redeem time exploring opportunities that will bring him closer to his desired career path. Meet Kathy. She's 29 and living in Barbados. She studied graphic design at SCAD and has enjoyed a successful rise from a role as a junior assistant to middle management in the marketing department at Digicel. In 2024, she's decided that she needs to hit some personal growth goals. In comes Bambi, where she's able to log and bank 20 hours of time creating social media content and digitizing the fundraising mailing list for Girl Be Heard TT during her spare time. She accumulates her Bambi time, and as Kathy does this, she redeems her credits to take tennis lessons, have her car washed, get a personal nutrition plan, attend an augmented reality workshop hosted by a business owner in Jamaica. Using Bambi, Kathy feels empowered and fulfilled to be able to help an understaffed NGO while achieving her own goals. Meet an understaffed and underfunded children's convalescent home located in Trinidad. They would like to plant a garden, a vegetable garden, on site in an effort to be more sustainable and reduce costs. Over the course of 4 months, they create a series of posts on Bambi for volunteers. They gain from the experience of numerous individuals who bank time doing landscape design, building planters, tilling soil, planting, teaching the children about gardening, and maintaining their now thriving vegetable garden. Meet the successful MSME 14 North and Co. They're operating in St. Lucia. Collectively, their management have elected to commit to sustainable practices with the aim of making a positive impact. In an effort to adhere to their CSR strategy and ESG metrics, they join Bambi and purchase a monthly standard subscription, which affords the company the ability to gift up to 10 digitized credits to individuals of their choice monthly. It also gives them the ability to gift up to 25 digitized credits to charities or NGOs monthly. This subscription keeps them in alignment with their mission while being able to focus on their core business. Shortly after co-founding Bambi, I was accepted into the Giving Tuesday Fellowship out of thousands of applicants from around the world. The Starling Collective was a unique fellowship of international grassroots leaders to discover and shape best practices for increasing generosity and driving systems change. As part of the Starling Collective, I received coaching and peer support with a focus on community building and movement learning. I got connected to a global network of other passionate leaders who are working to drive change. It was a rich learning and relationship building experience that was invaluable and really helped formalize the ideation of what Bambi is going to be. At the culmination of this fellowship, I received an excellence award for my pitch to a Giving Tuesday panel. This included a small grant to accelerate the app, the honor of being a Starling alumni ambassador for a year, and to be included in the Starling Collective promotions internationally. Most recently, my co-founder and I received a scholarship to take part in the TBR Lab Accelerator program conducted by Tech Beach, who are dedicated to transforming the digital landscape of the Caribbean and emerging markets in partnership with the DMZ, a world-leading incubator for tech startups. The 9-week intensive accelerator program will help us launch the Bambi app, getting us one step closer to becoming a household name. Stay tuned. Bambi will be launching in October of this year. Prior to that, I would urge you to head over to our website to sign up for our waiting list so you can be one of the pioneers of time banking in your island. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for your time today. Now I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. Congratulations for the scholarship from Tech Beach Retreat. That's amazing. And it's always amazing as co-founders to know that you have the support from the local communities in growing your business. So I've never heard of the concept of time banking. How did you come up with this concept?
I did not come up with it. The concept of time banking has been in one shape or another in existence since the 1800s. It was made popular by Edgar Kahn in the 1980s
Okay.
And has taken on various forms at all levels, from potluck levels to governmental levels across the world ever since. It's just it's a very new concept for our region.
Absolutely. If you were to explain time banking to like a kid, like how would you simplify it in its shortest form?
Well, it's the ability to give and take. You give what you have, which is your time, and you can get back the exact same time gaining something else.
Awesome. So was there like a specific moment in your, I guess, development phase in Bandy that kind of inspired the actual company? Like, did you need it yourself at one point, or was it like you saw someone else in need of it? How did that came about?
I really think we all need it. But it's really the pandemic left us so locked off from each other, and
Absolutely.
it was really a rude awakening that we were so interconnected in certain ways and so far away from each other in others, and that in order to get back to some nice ideals of the past, we really needed to act more like a community. And time banking has just been something that just kept popping up in my head over time. And I had a chat very informally with my co-founder about it, and she was as passionate as I was after one conversation. So the journey began.
I love that. Now that you're an entrepreneur, what would you say was like, I guess, some of the challenges of creating a startup in its early stages? Because right now it's still in like the development phase.
It's still in its early stages, and the challenges, I mean, as any startup in the Caribbean, it's just trying to get all the information that you need to actually start it up. And there's such a lack of data in the region that you don't know, the lack of market research and data. That would really be the biggest obstacle that we faced and are still facing.
Absolutely. So was there any local initiatives like in St. Lucia or Trinidad that really help foster like startups and new companies, etc.? Because I'm curious to know like what's the culture in other Caribbean countries.
It's pretty the same. I think that we have brilliant minds across all of the governments. They just get stumped. There's only so much they can do at such a high level, and then they have great initiatives, but they can't seem to all mesh together. So they always seem a little bit too disjointed. So even something like a time banking app could assist them. They should join Bandy and get people to volunteer and use, to be able to use some more of their social initiatives.
Absolutely. I saw, I think, an article the other day. I forgot exactly what it is verbatim, but it was just the simple fact that people are lacking hugs, just simple things like that. And I know like it's often a discourse on Twitter and stuff that, back in our parents' days, we had a village that raised us. And now everything is so secluded and it's not the same anymore. So, and, the Caribbean is very much rooted in community, right? You had that's how the culture was here, and it's like, how can we bring that back essentially? So I really appreciate that Bandy is kind of pioneering that at home.
That too, and social mobility. I think we tend to get stuck in whatever our current situation is because of lack of access. And there are so many you don't need to have to go away to a first world country to get all of this education and these skills.
Absolutely.
And there are so many willing people who want to share what they've done and what they have, and so many willing participants. So we just needed a platform for it.
Absolutely. What would be like your big dream for Bandy? Like it's successful, it's in all the countries. Like what would that look like for you?
The big dream is that it's a household name. Everybody knows it. They're talking about Bandy time, Bandy points. We'll eventually be through. When we launch in October, we are going to be in Trinidad, St. Lucia, and Barbados.
Excellent.
with the view to go to Jamaica thereafter, and then
Mhm.
the rest, everything else is the oyster.
Super exciting. More power to you and good luck to this venture. And we are rooting for you. Let us know, plug us with all your socials and whatever Bandy's release, let us know again so we can share it with the masses. We're here to support you for sure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Definitely share socials with us later so we can reshare it on our Instagram pages.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. So, are we ready for our next speaker? You've probably awesome. So we've had an amazing journey of 6 entire days. Well, 7 actually, if you include the amazing Youth Summit Day put on by fantastic youth around the Caribbean. 7 whole days of wholesome content, inspirational people that are out here doing things. And I could not be more inspired and actually genuinely happy for them and to see what they're coming up with, how they're revolutionizing everyday tasks, and even within things in the Caribbean, super exciting things. We host this summit every year just to give people a platform to share their knowledge, what they're working on, in a way to support, to initiate support and collaboration between people and between the Caribbean nations. We are separated by waters, but I genuinely believe we're all in this together. We're definitely one in our hearts, which I know sounds so corny, but I really do believe that. So once again, thank you so much for being here today, the past 6 days, just popping in, or was it even sharing our flyers around. Thank you so much for supporting us. We do this for the community, and yeah, we continue to do this all year round because this is what we're passionate about. This is what drives us and motivates us. So once again, feel free to contact us, the organization, on any of the socials, which is IWD Tech Summit. And as well, you can contact the speakers and even rewatch the recordings on YouTube because they're all on YouTube. So this was an exciting week. We will definitely see you all next year. We're bigger and better. and yeah, thank you once again. Ciao, ciao. Good evening wherever you are.